New York City, the late 1980s. A concrete jungle pulsating with a raw, untamed energy. Out of this urban chaos rose a figure as captivating as he was destructive. Michael Alig. He was the ringleader, the Pied Piper of a technicolor nightmare we called the Club Kids. A scene fueled by excess, where the nights were long, the music was loud, and the highs were dangerously high. But behind the glitter and the glamour lurked a darkness that would eventually consume them all. Alig's story is not one of redemption, but rather a cautionary tale. A descent into the abyss fueled by ambition, addiction, and ultimately, murder. His name became synonymous with the underbelly of New York's club scene, a stark reminder that even in the brightest of lights, shadows lurk. This is the story of Michael Alig, the Club Kids, and the night the music died. The air crackled with anticipation. Bodies moved to the relentless beat. Disco balls scattered shards of light across a sea of sweating, writhing bodies. This was New York City in the late 20th century, a city that never slept, a city where anything felt possible. The legacy of Studio 54 still hung in the air, a potent cocktail of glamour, exclusivity, and a touch of danger. But the scene was changing. A new generation craved something more, something wilder, something different. They found it in the cavernous halls of churches transformed into nightclubs, places like the Limelight, where the lines between sinner and saint blurred under the strobe lights. It was here, in this hedonistic playground, that Michael Alig found his calling. He wasn't there for the music, not really. He was there for the spectacle, the chaos, the power that came with being at the center of it all. Michael Alig wasn't born a monster. He was a boy from the Midwest, yearning for escape, for acceptance, for something more than the ordinary could offer. Growing up in South Bend, Indiana, Alig felt stifled by the conservative environment and the mundane routine of small-town life. He was different, and he knew it. He longed for a place where he could truly be himself, where his flamboyant personality and creative spirit could flourish. He was a boy from the Midwest, yearning for escape, for acceptance, for something more than the ordinary could offer. The bright lights and endless possibilities of New York City called to him like a siren song. It was a place where he could reinvent himself, where he could leave behind the constraints of his past and embrace a future filled with excitement and adventure. For something more than the ordinary could offer. He found it in the pulsating heart of New York City's club scene. The city was a playground for the bold and the daring, a place where the lines between reality and fantasy blurred, and Alig was determined to make his mark. He found it in the pulsating heart of New York City's club scene. The clubs were a kaleidoscope of color and sound, a sensory overload that was both exhilarating and overwhelming. It was here that Alig discovered his true calling. He was a natural showman, a master of spectacle, and he quickly realized that he could use his talents to create something truly extraordinary. His ambition was a tangible thing, a hunger that could never be satisfied. He craved attention, validation, the intoxicating power that came with being the center of attention. He wanted to be more than just a face in the crowd. He wanted to be a legend. He craved attention, validation, the intoxicating power that came with being the center of attention. He started small, throwing parties in his apartment, a kaleidoscope of color and chaos in a sea of urban anonymity. But Alig was a natural showman, a master manipulator, and his parties quickly gained notoriety. He started small, throwing parties in his apartment, a kaleidoscope of color and chaos in a sea of urban anonymity. These gatherings were more than just parties. They were immersive experiences, carefully curated to transport attendees to another world. Alig's charisma and creativity drew people in, and soon his apartment was overflowing with revelers eager to be part of the magic, a kaleidoscope of color and chaos in a sea of urban anonymity. But Alig was a natural showman, a master manipulator, and his parties quickly gained notoriety. Word spread like wildfire, and soon everyone wanted to be part of the spectacle. The parties became the hottest ticket in town, attracting a motley crew of artists, socialites, and those living on the fringes of society. But Alig was a natural showman, a master manipulator, and his parties quickly gained notoriety. They became the hottest ticket in town, attracting a motley crew of artists, socialites, and those living on the fringes of society. They were the club kids, and Alig was their reluctant king. They became the hottest ticket in town, attracting a motley crew of artists, socialites, and those living on the fringes of society. The club kids were a subculture unto themselves, a group of misfits and outcasts who found solace and camaraderie in the wild, anything-goes atmosphere of the clubs. They were drawn to Alig's magnetic personality and his ability to create a sense of belonging in a world that often rejected them. They were the club kids, and Alig was their reluctant king. He dressed them in outrageous costumes, painted their faces with grotesque designs, and sent them out into the night as his own personal army of misfits. Together, they pushed the boundaries of fashion, art, and social norms, creating a vibrant and chaotic scene that was both thrilling and dangerous. He dressed them in outrageous costumes, painted their faces with grotesque designs, and sent them out into the night as his own personal army of misfits. The club kids became a sensation, their outlandish appearances and wild antics making headlines and capturing the public's imagination. Painted their faces with grotesque designs and sent them out into the night as his own personal army of misfits. He was building an empire, one outrageous party at a time. But with fame and power came a darker side, one that would ultimately lead to his downfall, and sent them out into the night as his own personal army of misfits. He was building an empire, one outrageous party at a time. The club kids were more than just a group of partygoers. They were a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of rebellion and excess in a city that thrived on both. He was building an empire, one outrageous party at a time. But as Alig's fame grew, so did his ego and his appetite for excess. The parties became more extravagant, the costumes more outrageous, and the behavior more reckless. It was a world of hedonism and debauchery, and Alig was its undisputed ruler. Yet, beneath the glittering surface, darkness was brewing, and the empire he had built was on the brink of collapse. Section 4. A kaleidoscope of excess. Inside the world of the club kids. Imagine a world where conformity is a sin, where self-expression is not just encouraged but celebrated. The club kids were a walking, talking, dancing middle finger to societal norms. They were a kaleidoscope of color and chaos, a vibrant explosion of individuality in a sea of gray conformity. Their outfits were a form of armor and rebellion, a visual assault on the senses. Feathers, sequins, platform shoes that defied gravity. The more outrageous, the better. Each night was a new opportunity to push the boundaries of fashion and art, to create a spectacle that would be remembered. They were not just dressing up, they were making a statement, a declaration of their right to be different, to be seen, and to be heard. They were living canvases, their bodies transformed into works of art, however bizarre or unsettling. Their playground was the nightclub, their anthem the relentless pulse of the music. They danced with abandon, fueled by a potent cocktail of drugs, alcohol, and the insatiable desire to escape the mundane. The nightclubs were their sanctuaries, places where they could let go of societal expectations and immerse themselves in a world of fantasy and freedom. The music was their heartbeat, the lights their guiding stars. They moved as one, a collective force of creativity and defiance. But behind the glitter and the glamour, a darkness was brewing. The pressure to outdo, to shock, to remain relevant in a scene that thrived on novelty was taking its toll. The lines between performance and reality blurred, and the pursuit of pleasure became a dangerous obsession. The need to constantly innovate and surprise led to increasingly risky behavior. The club kids were not just performers. They were pioneers exploring the outer limits of self-expression. But this relentless quest for new experiences came at a cost. Relationships were strained, and the sense of community that had once been their strength began to fracture. The very qualities that made the club kids so captivating, their fearlessness, their creativity, their refusal to conform, also made them vulnerable. As the nights grew longer and the parties wilder, the shadows grew darker. The club kids were dancing on the edge of a precipice, and not all of them would make it back. Their story is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the fine line between liberation and self-destruction. Yet, despite the risks, the legacy of the club kids endures. They showed the world that it is possible to live boldly, to embrace one's true self, and to find beauty in the unconventional. Their spirit of rebellion and creativity continues to inspire new generations of artists and dreamers, proving that the desire to break free from the ordinary is a timeless and universal human impulse. Section 5. Angel Melendez, The Life of the Party and Its Victim. Angel Melendez was the life of the party. He was the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly become the center of attention. His charisma was magnetic, drawing people towards him like moths to a flame. Whether he was dancing on the floor or chatting with friends, Angel had a way of making everyone feel special and included. His smile could light up a room, his energy infectious. It was impossible to be in a bad mood when Angel was around. His laughter was contagious, and his positive outlook on life was something that many admired. He had a way of turning even the most mundane moments into something magical. He was a fixture in the club scene, as well known for his outrageous outfits as his kind heart. Angel's fashion sense was bold and unapologetic, often pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. His unique style made him stand out in any crowd, and he wore his individuality with pride. But it wasn't just his appearance that made him memorable. It was his genuine kindness and willingness to help others. Angel was drawn to Alig's orbit, seduced by the promise of fame and acceptance. Michael Alig was a prominent figure in the club scene, known for his wild parties and larger-than-life persona. For Angel, being associated with Alig meant access to a world of glamour and excitement. It was an opportunity to be part of something bigger than himself, to be recognized and celebrated. He became a fixture at Alig's side, his warmth a stark contrast to Alig's increasingly erratic behavior. While Angel was known for his kindness and positive energy, Alig's behavior became more unpredictable and dangerous. The contrast between the two was striking, and many wondered how such different personalities could coexist. They were an unlikely pair, the flamboyant party boy and the quiet soul. Angel's calm and collected demeanor often balanced out Alig's wild antics. Together, they created a dynamic that was both fascinating and perplexing to those who observed them. Their partnership was a blend of chaos and calm, a dance of opposites that kept the club scene buzzing with intrigue. But beneath the surface, a toxic dynamic was brewing. The pressures of the nightlife, combined with personal insecurities, began to take a toll on their relationship. What once seemed like a perfect partnership started to show cracks, revealing underlying tensions that were hard to ignore. Alig, fueled by his own insecurities and addictions, began to resent Angel's popularity. The more attention Angel received, the more threatened Alig felt. His jealousy grew, turning into a simmering resentment that he struggled to hide. The very qualities that made Angel beloved by many became the source of Alig's envy. He saw him as a threat, a rival for the attention he so desperately craved. Alig's need for validation and recognition was insatiable, and Angel's rising star only intensified his feelings of inadequacy. The friendship that once brought them together now seemed to be tearing them apart. The relationship soured, poisoned by jealousy, paranoia, and the corrosive influence of drugs. The nightlife that once brought them joy now became a battleground of emotions. Substance abuse only exacerbated their issues, clouding their judgment and fueling their conflicts. The vibrant world they once thrived in turned dark and dangerous. What began as a friendship curdled into something ugly, a toxic entanglement that would have deadly consequences. The bond that once seemed unbreakable was now a source of pain and turmoil. Their interactions became increasingly volatile, setting the stage for a tragic outcome that no one could have predicted. The party was coming to an end, and the music was about to stop. The vibrant lights and pulsating beats that once defined their world were fading, leaving behind a haunting silence. The end of the party marked the end of an era, a sobering reminder of the fragility of life and the destructive power of unchecked emotions.